Broadcasting from the heart of downtown Hollywood. This is SoFloRadio.com. ZNation. ZNation. Where consciousness is queen, love really is the answer. And making a difference is on the menu. ZNation. Organic beats and inspiring treats. Get your weekly dose of vitamin Z now. This is ZNation on SoFloRadio.com.
Welcome. What's up, light workers? Thank you for tuning in. So this is ZNation, and we're broadcasting live. It's a beautiful rainy day in South Florida, and Sunset and I are going to be a little bit more silent today. We're going to talk today and experience Vipassana meditation together, and so both of us are interested in Vipassana. I have sat and served a couple of times, and Sunset is planning on going first one this summer, and I'm planning on also going to serve this year, which means that instead of sitting and meditating the whole time, I actually get to prepare food and clean up after the people who are having the experience of the 10-day meditation. So if you don't know what Vipassana is, just a little brief introduction to what it is. So Vipassana is a 10-day meditation course. It's completely in silence. So you spend 10 days in silence. You spend 10 days learning how to meditate the way the Buddha meditated. And the Buddha taught this way to meditate because he figured out a way to come out of suffering, to come out of human suffering. So there is hope, is what the Buddha says. We don't have to live in suffering. We can take on a practice that elevates our mindfulness and our awareness such that we can become less reactive and come into a place of equanimity where we are not affected by the highs and the lows of human life. So we're going to tune in today with our guest, which is Goenka. And Goenka is the person that took the teachings of the Buddha and did his very, very best to keep them authentic, to keep them untouched, He did his best not to add anything to or remove anything from the teachings, so they're purely as the Buddha taught. And Goenka formed an organization called Vipassana. It's a non-profit organization, which means, when you go and you do the 10 days in Vipassana, you spend 10 days, they lodge you, they feed you fantastic food, really fantastic food, and you're taught how to meditate. There are people there who are trained to facilitate these courses, highly trained people that can really hold space for what people can deal with and what can come up for people sitting for 10 days in silence. And then after the 10 days, they offer you to make a donation for being there. And the donation is not for your time spent there. The donation is to pay for the next person, because the person that came before you paid for you. And that is the way Vipassana works. I love that. When I sat for the first time, I came home and I decided to make my teacher trainings by donation and started doing a lot more things like that. It works for them very, very well because, the philosophy is that teachings of spirituality shouldn't be sold. And these are pure teachings of spirituality with the only intention is to awaken humanity and to raise our level of consciousness and our vibration. And so I'm very humbled by Goenka and Vipassana and the whole organization and how they put on these very intricate and large events for large numbers of people. And it's done all on donation. If you go to the website, it's Dhamma, DHAMMA.org. And you can see all the different locations all over the world where they have centers. All these centers were built by volunteers. They are managed and maintained by volunteers. So when I went to Lebanon and Beirut, they had one Vipassana center.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And what's really cool too is once you've done the 10-day Vipassana course, you can serve any center. You can go and volunteer your time for 10 days. And serving is a little bit different in that you don't have to honor the noble silence rule, which when you sit, there is absolutely no speaking and no eye contact. However, if you need to speak to somebody, you speak to the people who are running it, the teachers. You can always go ask questions and get advice and get coaching. And if you're dealing with something, you go to them and they will support you. But you don't speak or interact with any of the other participants. However, when you serve, you don't keep noble silence, but you're asked to keep noble speech, which for a lot of people is more challenging. It's easier to keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more challenging to speak and speak only truth. Speak and be mindful every word that you say is actually truth. And when we really start to observe our speech, sometimes we just want to be silent because a lot of what we say is stories and coming from the past. So you practice noble speech, and then when you serve, you also you hustle, you work a lot, and you are always either preparing food or cleaning after the people eat. So they eat 3 times a day. So while they're in meditation, we're chopping up, preparing food, making these amazing meals. Every day is a different vegan meal. It's crazy good.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it's probably different where you do it in the world. I know my partner Moses did it in India, and he ate Indian food every day. Where I did it in Jessup, Georgia, and every day was a different meal. There was lasagna.
That sounds nice.
There was chili one day. There was like an Asian dish. There was tacos one day. I love to talk about the food at Vipassana because it's a highlight for me. And I'm sure it is for a lot of people. But anyway, so when you're serving, you get to prepare all of that. And it's really cool too because you get to know a lot of the recipes they use. The recipes are made to feed vegetarians in a balanced way. So they use things like nutritional yeast to add vitamin B. They use tempeh. They don't use much soy, which is nice. So they stay off of the processed soy and stick with the fermented soy. They also provide a lot of organic produce, as much organic as they can bring in, they do. And then while we're preparing the food, it's all done in mindfulness, either in silence. And if you are talking, you're practicing noble speech. So there's no like small talk. There's no gossiping or talking about politics or talking about things that don't really make a difference with what we're up to there, which is maintaining a space for people to have a transformation and for us also to have a transformation. Because when you serve, your transformation is even sometimes more intense, but coming from a different space, which is of service. So when you serve, you also get to meditate. We meditate 3 times a day for 1 hour, 1 time in the morning, 1 time in the afternoon, and 1 time at night, where the participants who come and sit, you pretty much meditate all day in segments. So you start at 5 in the morning or 4:30 in the morning, and you meditate till about 6:30, and then you have breakfast. And breakfast is great. It's very heavy on the sugar and the carbs. It's like oatmeal and cereal and lots of fruit. They even have Ezekiel bread, 3 different kinds. They have almond butter, peanut butter. They don't have ghee, but they have butter, and they have vegan butter.
They're getting you prepared for the rest of the day. At least you have something exciting, real exciting in the morning, that will open your senses. And
it does. And then you meditate. So as a participant, there's 3 mandatory sits in the main hall. And the mandatory sits in the main hall, you have to go in the main hall and meditate. If you don't, they'll go get you from your room. And during those meditations is very specific what you can and what you cannot do. One of the clauses in meditating, 3 of the rules of meditating in Vipassana, they tell you, 1 is to have your eyes closed. Because what you do in Vipassana is you turn your attention inwards. And you start to really observe what's going on inside. So if you have your eyes open, then that's distracting to the senses naturally.
Yeah, because you have all these stimuli and then you're trying to find something to distract you, because think about it, you're sitting there for 6 hours, 7 hours a day, probably more. And so believe me, like sometimes when you're in meditation, if you can just look at a picture, man, that's exciting. It's like, wow, I got something, and it takes you away.
Your mind will give you lots to be distracted with once you go in.
Old movie clips.
We don't need more, and that's why Vipassana meditation is suggested to do indoors, not outdoors, because when you're outdoors, just the wind can be distracting, the sun on your skin, all of the sensations can take us away from the goal of this specific meditation. The second suggestion is to sit up tall, so not to be laying down. I mean, the first reason for that is so you don't fall asleep. You stay alert, you keep your spine straight up and down, just logically. And FYI, there are people at Vipassana that come to Vipassana and they sit in a chair the whole time because they can't sit cross-legged. So please don't think that because you can't sit for a long period of time, or if you have back issues, that you can't do this.
Wow, I didn't know that. Because for me, like to sit on the floor for a very long, it really, I get the tingles in my legs and it hurts a lot.
Yeah.
But if I can just sit on a chair, it doesn't have to be the most comfortable chair, but just the act of just sitting on a chair will be a lot more easier for me and a lot less distracting to like the pain. Because I remember when we did it in I Love Yoga, like, I mean, I had like cushions and all that, but still it was like that. I felt like that was the most distraction, was that tingling, like my leg getting tired, having to open it up, and it would take me out.
One of the main things, and that brings us to the third thing, is the third suggestion is be still.
Yeah.
So when it begins, you lay your hands on the lap or on a knee and you're still. Now, those 3 mandatory meditations, the ones that you have to be in the hall, it's recommended in those to absolutely not move. Only for those 3. So it's 3 hours. You practice absolutely no movement. So, the tingling, that's more sensations. And it's sensations that you can observe. And eventually that tingling will pass. It will, like water under a bridge, it will pass. So to have the ability to observe those. And then, there's a thin line where some people start to experience pain. And observing pain is a great practice. But I know, like, when Moses did Vipassana in India, I mean, he has chronic hip, and he was really in excruciating pain. And they kept telling him to observe. They kept telling him to observe. And at some point, he just couldn't take it anymore. He didn't quit. He stayed. And he learned a lot about observing his pain, But it's not about toughing it out.
Yeah.
They won't ask you to tough anything out. But they'll ask you to just try on, no movement for that hour. And you'll be surprised what happens, when you allow yourself to not move and not move your leg. Even though it's fallen asleep, just don't move it. Let it be. But for the rest of the day, the other sessions that are not in the main hall, now you can go to the main hall for those, but what I did is I would go to my room a lot. And I really appreciated the experience of sitting on my bed and sitting against the wall.
Yeah.
And having my own space. So for a lot of the meditations, I would go back to my room, and they have a bell, so you hear it everywhere. And when you hear the bell, it's either time to pause or, go eat. So you meditate in the morning. There's probably a couple of sessions, and then there's a lunchtime around 12 o'clock, and you eat. And then there's more afternoon sessions, and there's the mandatory session in the afternoon again, where you have that 1 hour where everybody is in the main hall, including the people who are serving. And it's the one where there's no movement. And then around 5 o'clock, there's a third meal, but it's not a meal. It's just tea and fruits. So you really have your last meal around 12 and have a very light snack for dinner. And for me, that was such a resetting of my system. It's a very good way to eat, to eat early and to finish the heavy eating by 12 o'clock, and then 5 o'clock just have a tea and fruits, something very light. And in the evening, there would be every night there's a talk. So Goenka comes on the screen and he talks for 1 hour. And you can actually watch those talks. They're on YouTube. If you put in Goenka discourses, you'll see discourses 1 through 10. They're the same ones that you watch at Vipassana. And those discourses are phenomenal. For a lot of people, I think it's like the favorite part of Vipassana, because what he breaks down in there, the scientific information, the stories that he shares to help you understand not only the technique, but why you're doing it, and what it does and how it works and how the mind works and how human beings work. So there's the discourse, and then we meditate for a little bit longer, and then it ends at 9 p.m. And by 10 o'clock, the lights are out and we go to sleep. And then we start again at 4 or 5 in the morning again. It goes for 10 days. It is said that the first, the fourth, and the seventh day could be the toughest. The way it works is they spend 3.5 days teaching you how to concentrate, how to focus. So the first days are spent using the breath. It's called apana, to tame the mind enough to be able to focus.
Yeah, because your mind is going to take you away, and that's why you have your breath. Literally, you're going to feel your breath. They're teaching you to feel, and then also to observe it. When your mind is like the monkey is trying to take you away, you just, okay, I'm back, So it's good. They teach you like a tool. And
there's nobody guiding it. So, you're really on your own. Like the teachers are at the front of the room, and the meditation will start and then the meditation will end. So you learn how to observe yourself and catch yourself. I notice so much how I think about the same things in a cycle. And I also learned a lot about how much I worry a lot. And while I was there, I worried a lot. And if it wasn't one thing that I was worrying about, and I would move it out of the way, and then another thought would pop up. And so you learn a lot. And that first part, the 3.5 days, it was interesting because I've gone to Vipassana 2 times. And the second time I went, they tell you if you've gone before, you can go right into the Vipassana meditation. You don't have to do the 3.5 day, the instructions they give. You can just go right into it. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't go right into the meditation because I hadn't kept up my practice in a way where I was sharp with my mind. And every time I tried to go into the meditation, even though I know how to do it, my mind wasn't sharp enough. I had lost the faculty of the sharpness of the mind because I hadn't kept up the meditation and the practice. So when I went back the second time, I started all over with everybody. I took the 3.5 days to really sharpen my mind and be able to focus it. So it's like you're training the mind for the first 3.5 days. And you train it like you train a wild animal. So if you train a wild animal and you try to force it, it'll retaliate. It'll fight you back. It'll get nasty. And the mind is like that. It's like a wild animal.
Word.
So you just learn to be really gentle and patient, and to treat it like not only a wild animal, but a tool, right? So you're not trying to destroy the mind. You want to tame it so you can work with it. And the whole reason we're taming it is so that we can learn the Vipassana technique, the meditation that the Buddha taught, so we could end suffering. But before we can teach people how to do this meditation, the mind has to be able to follow. The mind has to be able to concentrate and be sharp enough to get the instructions and stay with it so that it could benefit from the technique. And that's why, Vipassana asks you not to teach the technique. Not because of any ego trip or any kind of dogma, but, just for people to have the experience, it really makes a difference to go in that space for 10 days, to have the silence, to have the phones turned off, to have a space where people are really pulling for you to have this experience and have it be powerful. Now, you could, do it in your home. You can create that environment. It's a whole different story. I know people do that. But it's always really nice to go someplace where you have the experience of just being able to be there without thinking about food, without thinking of sleeping, without thinking of anything. You're just there for the sole purpose of going in and just discovering whatever is going to come out of this experience for you.
And I think also it's just like, even though you're not supposed to look at anybody, you're not supposed to talk to anybody, but you're still with people. And it's like, silently, it's like you're all guys are working together to do this, whereas when you're by yourself, it's a little different. I don't know, like I like meditating with people.
Yeah, I agree. There is definitely
it's like we're all in this together, and it's like you have these 10-20 people who are most likely going through the same things you're going through right now.
You're right, it does make a difference. There's one thing, like, the rooms have, like, I had a room with 6 roommates, maybe 7, 8, and we couldn't talk to each other. Like, if we had to communicate, there's like a whiteboard for the bathroom. So when we get in there, you schedule when you're going to take a shower. You schedule what day you're going to clean the bathroom. So all that is communicated beforehand, and we don't have to talk about it or communicate about it in any way. And there is something about, waking up at 4:30 in the morning and somebody gets out of bed and they go brush their teeth and you're like, oh, I'm gonna get up too. Or like I had some lazy roommates, so a lot of them would stay in bed at 4 in the morning, and it didn't encourage me to go. So there is a dynamic that plays out for sure. And so the first 3.5 days you're taught Apana, which for me, as somebody who's done Vipassana, that's the extent of which I will teach. Mm-hmm. So, like, we're doing a mini Vipassana kind of day at I Love Yoga on Saturday, and we're taking a vow of silence from 1 to 6 o'clock and meditating, and we're going to be teaching just the first part that you learn at Vipassana, which is how to focus your breath. And so after 3.5 days, halfway through the day, on the third day, they put on Goenka in the middle of the day again, and Goenka breaks down the Vipassana technique. And, if you've done any kind of mindfulness work, whenever you turn inwards and you start to be mindful of the sensations in your body, there's a shift that begins to happen with your consciousness. So it's a specific way that the Buddha gave to experience the sensations in the body in a way that has you experientially, like not like reading a book, but like you get it in your DNA. You get the transience of life. You get how things are really temporary. And I was able to release so much attachments, so much needing for things, neediness. So from the third day till the rest of your time there, all you're doing is practicing the Vipassana technique. Mm-hmm. On the 9th day is the actual last day of noble silence. So you're given 1 day to wean yourself back into the world, because it's a little bit of a shock going back in the world. It really is. And so the last day, Goenka calls it noble chatting. Or no, noble chatter. And it really is like the people that are there that you spend the last 9 days sharing a main hall with, sharing meals with, and some of them sharing rooms with and sharing bathrooms with. There is such a special connection. The 10th day is so much fun. It's so much fun. You eat together, but you can talk.
Word. You be like, yo, how was your experience? Oh my God, I thought you were crazy too. And you thought I was crazy. Oh, great. Like, awesome.
Are you okay? You were crying all night the other night. There's all kinds of stuff that goes on, but you don't talk about it. And then, there's also the opportunity on the 10th day to really observe. Once we start talking and having conversations, the experience of the meditation, the quality really drops. Mm-hmm. There's something about just shutting out the senses that allows us to have a really, really deep experience. And then my experience going back into life, unless I have a group of people that we do this with, I found it very hard to keep up the meditation. And afterwards, it's suggested that you do 30 minutes in the day, in the morning, and 30 minutes at night at least. And when I come back, I keep it up for a few months, and then it fizzles out. And it's just the nature of the busy lives that I lead, that we lead. And unless I set up a structure for it, I lose it. So I set up meditation classes so I can teach, so it keeps me in the loop. For a while, I found a group of Vipassana, like official, they have it on the Vipassana website. There's sittings that happen locally. But the one in South Florida just wasn't popping. I kept going and I was by myself. So I'm like, I might as well just stay home and do it alone. And then also having people in my life do it. My brother did it and my partner's done it. And it is such a powerful thing to have between people, especially in your family, your partners, your business partners. It gives you somewhere to stand where, you can hold each other accountable for the truth that's been delivered to your DNA through this meditation. And, sometimes, I'll sit with my business partner, with Moses, and we'll just say, let's not talk anymore. Because the more we talk, the more lies come out and the more stories come out. And the more we're reacting. And to stop the cycle, we both will sit and we will turn in and we'll do our own Vipassana meditation. And, you only need a few minutes to tap into truth again. And to discover, the truth of the moment is that all that stuff, all the emotions, all the stories, all the sensations, if we pause to observe them, none of it is real. None of it is real. And we don't have to react to all of it or any of it. And it's this practice of continually pausing, this practice of continually observing, being patient with myself, and being patient with others, that develops the practice and develops the practice. Goenka talks a lot about samskaras. Samskaras are like pieces of your karma, accumulations of your karma. He says every time you have a negative thought, you add to your samskaras, you add to your bad karma. The moment you think something bad, the moment you say something negative. So when we stop the accumulation of the negativity and start to meditate and pause the reactions and start to observe, we start to really create a new karma for our life immediately. So we're going to listen a little bit to Goenka, and we're going to tune into his teachings, and we're also going to pause a little bit and meditate together. So I would love to just, before we go on our break and listen to our sponsors, just take 1 minute with you right now. So if you're able to be still right now, I invite you to just relax, sit up. If you're able to close your eyes, please do it. And if you're not able to close your eyes because you're driving or something, then keep your eyes open. It's a more advanced way to meditate. And just observe yourself breathing right now, naturally, like without having to control the breath or do anything with it. Just observe. Thank you for pausing with us. We'll be right back. We have a message from our sponsors, Better Life Consulting, amazing, amazing life work. I Love Yoga Studio and Boutique. Thank you for playing us live in the store every Thursday. Thank you for supporting us. Am I missing?
Yoga Twist Julie.
Yoga Twist with Miss Julie.
For bringing yoga to the youngins.
Yes, and making yoga fun for families. And SoFlowRadio.com. Thank you, George, for giving us this opportunity to make a difference, to highlight those who are making a difference, and for training us to be badass.
Word.
We love you. We'll be right back right here on SoFlowRadio.com.
Tune in to get tuned in. This is ZNation on SoFlowRadio.com.
Add a twist of yoga.
Yoga Twist with Julie.
A great way to integrate yoga, meditation, and lots of fun.
Promote family bonding. Help with flexibility and exercise.
Julie has been teaching kids for over 8 years in after-school programs, summer camps, and local studios.
Book a group, family, or one-on-one session now. Email me, yogatwistjulie@gmail.com.
Follow Yoga Twist Julie on Instagram and like Yoga Twist on Facebook for great family lifestyle tips and Yoga Twist events.
Omar is a certified hypnotist with an intuitive and gentle approach that empowers his clients, allowing them to realize their own wisdom. Personally, I'd been stuck in a heartbreak, and with Omar's help, I got to the root of my suffering and my attachment to staying in relationships that no longer served me. I instantly felt lighter and free from resentment for the first time in years. Contact Omar at 305-343-9210 and cause a breakthrough in your life.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Clark, and I'm a yoga teacher and student at I Love Yoga Studio. It's been my privilege to practice, learn, and expand in this place of ever-evolving love and spiritual growth. When you visit, you'll most likely be greeted with a welcome home, and that's exactly how you will feel, at home and free to be. The studio offers yoga classes that meet you at your level of practice with affordable prices. So check out our schedule at www.iloveyogastudio.com. See you on the mat. Namaste.
Join the ZNation team as a marketing partner. We are always looking for conscious, sustainable businesses to support and share with our growing community. If your business is one that serves humanity and you want the world to know, we want to help you grow. Sponsorship opportunities are available for all budgets and flavors. For more info, call us at 954-604-1290 or visit ZNationRadio.com.
See? It's easier than ever to listen to SoFlo. On the air and everywhere. On any computer, any mobile device, iPhone, iTouch, and anywhere you are, just hit SoFloRadio.com. Tell your friends about South Florida's radio network, SoFloRadio.com.
Now, back to ZNation, your weekly dose of inspiration on SoFloRadio.com.
Goenka.
Vipassana is a science of mind and matter, how the mind is influencing the body, and in return how body is influencing the mind. And it all happens at the depth of the mind. The conscious mind does not know what is happening deep inside. And one keeps on developing a habit pattern of reacting with craving whenever there is a pleasant sensation, reacting with aversion whenever there is unpleasant sensation. And constantly there are sensations throughout the body, pleasant, unpleasant, pleasant, unpleasant. The conscious mind may not react, but the deep unconscious is constantly reacting. It has become the slave of its own habit pattern of craving, aversion, craving, aversion. All other impurities of the mind, all other defilements of the mind are just product of these two, craving, aversion, craving, aversion. And whenever one generates craving or aversion, one loses the peace of the mind, the harmony of the mind, the balance of the mind. One becomes a miserable person. Without knowing that I am harming myself, one keeps on harming oneself. There are other techniques, we are not here to condemn them. Those techniques work at the surface level of the mind to calm the mind, perfectly all right, to purify the mind, perfectly all right, but just on the surface level or maybe slightly deeper. But this works, it starts working at the root level. The root level of the mind is constantly in contact with body sensations. Mind and matter are so interconnected, constantly, and there the habit pattern of craving aversion is going on. So you have to break that habit pattern, for which you have to go to the depth of the mind.
Okay, so cravings and aversions. This is one of the main teachings of Vipassana. So in other words, if I really, really, really like something and I get really attached to it, then there's going to be suffering.
Oh, yeah.
At some point, everything changes. Everything passes through. That's why relationships are so they're so destructive, because we get so attached to not just a person, but we get attached to how they make us feel. And that is the biggest trap. Mm-hmm. So, and that creates cravings. But what we crave is not the person. What we begin to crave, human beings crave sensations. So if you make me feel a certain way, there's a brain pattern that's connected to the pleasure or the satisfaction or the feel good of how you make me feel. And when you stop making me feel that way, I suffer.
And I also think it's because, like, with relationships, sometimes we make it a need instead of a want. And when you make something a need, it's like, I need this, and it becomes addictive, and it becomes, like you said, like a destruction, because then when that person isn't doing the things that, you know, those sensations you remember, it's like, it just totally like messes you up.
Mm-hmm. And other, cravings are, obvious ones is like, food, sex, drugs, alcohol are all things that human beings crave. Those are like the obvious ones. And then the aversions is the other side of that. Is like, I really don't like this. I really don't want this in my life. I hate this. And our unwillingness to be with things as they are in life, or just wanting things to be different, creates aversions. And when we have aversions towards things, that creates suffering. So that was, the Buddha's very simple message. Stay in the middle. Equanimous. Now, the mind is not trained to be equanimous. That's why we do all this work, because it's so simple. You're like, this is so simple. Just don't crave things. Don't have aversions towards things. Don't go too high, not too high, not too low. There's one and love in all. Right? So just staying in the middle. And the practice, that's the practice. The more you practice the meditation, the Vipassana meditation technique, the more you train at the root level. And what the root level is that's taught in Vipassana is your subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is directly connected to the sensations in the body. So the sensations are triggered by the subconscious mind. Before the thoughts, before the emotions is the subconscious mind. And when Goenka talks at the root level, he's talking at the level of the subconscious mind. And that's the part that a lot of people don't understand. It's like this, it's a big black box, what's in there, in all of our subconscious minds. We can alter things in the subconscious minds by beginning to train ourselves to observe and be mindful of the sensations in our bodies. And, some people will say, like, I meditate all the time. I'm meditating all day long. Of course, we want to be like in a meditative space all day long. In order to be able to do that, my friends, we have to sit 20, 30 minutes a day and practice. And then that practice will make your daily meditation stronger, real, solid. Okay, let's listen more from Goenka. He's going to talk about the practice. So, Goenka, tell us a little bit more about the practice.
You have to make a part of the mind very sharp. So you join a 10-day course, and 3 days continuously you have to work observing the breath as it comes in, as it goes out. Natural breath. No breathing exercise, not try to control the breath. Natural breath as it comes in, as it goes out, keeping your attention on a small area below the nostrils, above the upper lip. And because you are with the truth, there is no imagination, there is no verbalization, there is no visualization, there is no self-suggestion, auto-suggestion, just the truth that you are experiencing the breath coming in, going out, coming in, going out, and a small area. Continuously are working for 3 days. This makes the mind very sharp, very sensitive. And at the end of 3 days, one finds that you start feeling subtler realities. Besides the breath, there are so many other realities. You feel sensations in this area, different kinds of sensations, which normally you don't feel. Your mind, conscious mind, feels only very solidified, intensified, intense, gross, unpleasant sensation like pain, pressure. That is easy, people feel it. But there are so many other sensations throughout the body, all the time. Some of them are so subtle, just oscillation, very subtle oscillation. So mind must be trained to feel all kinds of sensations. And then from the 4th day onwards, you feel those sensations throughout the body. So you are developing your faculty to enable you to feel all types of sensations in the body. And another part of Vipassana is when you are aware of sensations, you change the habit pattern, don't react. Whether pleasant sensation, unpleasant sensation, just observe objectively. Whatever is happening, keep on understanding, this is not eternal. Whatever sensation arises, it does not stay forever. Very unpleasant sensation has arisen. Gross sensation, it arises, seems to stay for some time, but ultimately passes away. Sooner or later passes away. And when it turns into very subtle sensations, then it is mere vibration, arising, passing, with great rapidity. So the same characteristic makes no difference.
It's like, can you observe yourself experiencing pleasure during sex? The same as you observe yourself crying over sadness. I had that experience after Vipassana where, I had sex and I experienced it so differently because I was so aware of all the sensations, and I observed it like it was like black and white. It wasn't like all the stories about sex. It was just
whatever
what it
was
was
happening at that moment.
Yeah, I was so incredibly present, and I had the same experience around crying. I was crying over something and just bawling my eyes out, but I wasn't in the crying. I was observing myself crying, and there's a layer of suffering that comes off when I'm not in the story of the crying, but just objectively watching myself cry and allowing for that to be just like I allow the pleasure to be, and knowing that both the orgasm and the sadness will pass through. And then here I am again, still standing.
Can I ask you a question? Because I know the first 3 days are about learning, observing, like the sensations in your body. What are some things that came up for you during those 3 days?
Well, the first 3 days is not about observing the sensations in your body. It's strictly observing the breath.
Okay.
The triangle here?
Yeah. So what came up for you? Because I know even in that, things are going to come up. So what can you remember?
I can't distinguish between that and that. I was, the first time I did it, I thought I was pregnant. So I couldn't stop thinking about that till I got my period. And then when I got my period, I said, God, please, give me my period. I'll never worry about anything again. Let me enjoy my Vipassana. And then I got my period, and then the next thought was like, I wonder if my family's okay. I can't call them. What if they die and I can't? So if it wasn't one thing, it was the other. And that's what I really discovered for myself, is like all these thoughts that are in the background for me, even though I'm living a happy life, I have these concerns in the back and they gnaw at me and I keep entertaining them. One thing about the first 3 days, you know, the observing of the breath and the focusing of the mind, a lot of meditations that we're taught, whether it's repeating a mantra or visualizing something or watching a flame burn, all of these techniques are techniques to strengthen the faculty of the mind. The purpose of meditating is ascension, is enlightenment. It's not to tame the mind. But you can't get to there unless you do this, right? So, I just want to stress that, because focusing on your breath is a powerful way to do that, and it's not the only way. And Goenka talks about that, you know, because people will say, well, why can I repeat a mantra in my head while I'm meditating in Vipassana? And he says, no. Can I visualize my guru like I always do in meditation? He says, no. Just for 10 days, try on this technique. And whatever other technique you do, don't do it while you're here, so you can give this technique a fair chance. Like people who are Hare Krishna devotees, they do rounds of Hare Krishna. They're asked not to do that. And a lot of people won't go because they don't want to stop their practice. So they don't go do Vipassana, even though they understand it and it's something that they want. It conflicts with their daily practice. So you have to be willing to give up your attachment to your practice so you can try on this technique.
Yeah, because I think like we have all these techniques, we have all these things, but getting to a place where you don't need to do any of that and just be. Yeah. And I think a lot of people have a lot of problems with that. We're used to having techniques. We're used to having methods. Okay, almost like rituals, like habitual things we do.
You know, ultimately, I hear that a lot. Like people are like, yeah, I don't need to meditate. I meditate all day. Like I got this. But you can't have it if you don't have a practice to strengthen it. Our senses are awesome, and they're also, you know, they're a detriment because they're part of the Maya. They enroll us in the illusion of this world. And when we tune in to the subtler sensations, like, you know, at first when you start with Vipassana, you observe your breath. So for me, it was like, that's what I was used to. That's what meditation was for me. I just sit and observe my breath. So if anything, you know, I just cried a lot because I just was observing like just how my mind would go to like worst case scenarios, and I just go to scenarios where and then I experience the sadness as if it's real, and I take myself to these scenarios and just cry, and it's like, whoa, I just went through so much, you know, and nothing's happened. I'm still sitting here meditating. It's like I took myself on these trips, and then you know, when you start to do the Vipassana meditation, first, you know, I observe, oh, well, I don't feel sensations here. And then you go through it again. You're like, well, I do feel sensations, but they're very subtle. Are these sensations? And, you know, by the end, you know, I started really feeling like waves of energy moving up and down my body. And I had the ability to do that. Like when I leave Vipassana, I can do that. I could just stand and I can have those waves go through me. And when I sit and I close my eyes, that's what I'm doing. You know, I'm moving energy through me in the way I was taught in Vipassana. It's not moving energy, but it's moving my awareness through my body to get present to the subtle sensations. And sometimes they're not so subtle. You know, when I'm upset, I feel it in my throat. I feel it in my heart. I feel it in my stomach. And you know, to observe those sensations, it's amazing. When we're not aware of them, you're not aware of how reactive you are to them. Like when I cry, I feel it in my heart and I feel it in my throat. And I cry more about that than why I'm crying. And when you start to tune into that, it's amazing how automatic we are around reacting to what's going on in this body. Most people are so not aware of their bodies. You tell someone to lift their left arm, they have to think about it because we're not present to this body, let alone like the very, very subtle parts of it. And that's the key to end suffering. It's so simple.
For me, Vipassana sounds like going cold turkey. Because think about it, like if you were mentioning the Hare Krishnas, like that's kind of a bit of a distraction. Yeah, it's like it's a mantra and you keep repeating it, but it's still a distraction. What happens when you don't have that mantra now?
It absolutely is. You're right.
It's like going cold turkey. It's like, okay,
now what? I just sit with myself.
Yeah,
and that's that's what mantras and visualizations and all that is for. It's to help us. They're like training wheels. Now, don't get me wrong. Chanting the Maha Mantra can take you somewhere, and it does, and using mantras is a way to keep the mind focused. And we want to go beyond that.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like getting to that next level is like training wheels are off. Now you just have to be with yourself, be with your thoughts. Like, how are you going to feel now? Like, what's going to be coming up? What have you been distracting yourself from?
Yeah. And if you look at the 8 limb paths in the Yoga Sutras by Patanjali, there are 8 limbs, and one of them after asana is concentration. That's not the final destination.
Yeah.
After concentration is meditation. Meditation is not concentration. Concentration is preparation for meditation, and then samadhi, which is when you realize truth and you're one with everything, and you can just evaporate into thin air. Or some people call it dying consciously. It's transitioning consciously from this world to the next. So let's play a little bit more Goenka. He's going to talk about how this technique develops the wisdom.
When you understand that whatever is happening within the framework of the body is constantly changing, that means the entire physical structure, the entire mental structure constantly changing, something which is constantly changing, what is the sense to react with craving towards it or react with aversion towards it? You understand? With the wisdom of your experience. This is not just an intellectual understanding, now you are experiencing it. So the habit pattern starts changing from the root level. To change the habit pattern at the surface level of the mind, very easy. There are many techniques. People work on that. It gives result. But then if the impurity is at the depth of the mind, accumulated, time and again, there is a volcanic eruption. It comes on the surface and you are again agitated. The whole equanimity on the surface of the mind is gone. So that is why Buddha taught us to go to the depth of the mind and work with the depth of the mind. So that habit pattern is changed at the root level. If the root is decayed, then the whole tree will be decayed. If the root is healthy, then the whole tree will be healthy. So work at the root level. And he gave this wonderful technique. At the root level, mind is constantly in contact with body and body sensations. If you are aware of that and you are not reacting, your mind is becoming healthier and healthier, more and more wholesome. You live a better life. When the mind is pure, free from negativities, free from craving, then it generates love, compassion, goodwill. Instead of negative emotion, you start generating positive emotion, which is good for you, good for others. When you generate negative emotion, you are the first victim of your negativity. You become so miserable and you make others miserable. Instead of that, if you start generating positive emotion, you feel so much of peace and harmony. And you generate peace and harmony for others also. So you make others also happy. You are happy, others are happy. So this is a way of life, a good way of life, healthy way of life. Instead of making oneself miserable and making others miserable, now you start making yourself happy and make others happy.
Let's meditate together. Let's pause in this moment, wherever you are. I just uncrossed my legs and set my feet on the ground so I can ground myself. And Extend the spine straight. And then set your hands somewhere where perhaps you're comfortable and you don't have to move them anymore. Set your feet somewhere where you don't have to move them anymore. And just observe yourself breathing. So just observe. Are you breathing deep? Is your breath slow? Is it fast? Does the air flow freely through the right nostril, through the left nostril? And discover your breath newly in each moment. And please practice being patient with your mind. The mind's nature is to wander off. So if you catch yourself taking a thought for a ride and riding it out for a little bit, when you notice that you've fallen astray from your breath, simply come back. And notice when you come back, are you frustrated? Are you impatient? Are you thinking, this doesn't work? It's a life practice to be mindful, to be present. So it's important that we treat our mind with respect and treat it with the patience of a small, beautiful child who doesn't know better. And when we bring it back to the breath, we bring it back with love and kindness and the utmost compassion for yourself in this human shape, in this human life. It's been an honor and a blessing to share this time with you. Keep up the practice, even if it's for 5 minutes a day. Take that time, sharpen your mind, meditate, realize, love, and be.
Be gentle, y'all. Peace out.
We love y'all. Until next time, peace.
Broadcasting from the heart of downtown Hollywood, this is SoFloRadio.com.